Here we go now, baby. We are right back into the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Monday edition of Before You Bet right here on the Covers YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button right down there. So I hope everyone is coming off of a winning Sunday, the Miami Dolphins. It is Victory Monday. Congratulations to you if your team is coming off of a victory as well, but that is in the past. We're going to look into the future here. We got a Monday Night Football doubleheader. Going to be looking into that, our four best bets for that. Second half of the show, Brad Powers is going to be here to get a jump on some early lines here for Week 4 college football action. So speaking of Victory Monday, let's bring in my partner here for the first half of the show, Jason Logan. We call him J-Lo around here. J-Lo, how you feeling about your Dallas Cowboys?
Still cautiously optimistic here. We faced another, bum quarterback. So I'm not going to put too much weight into what we're seeing. We knew the defense was going to be good. I got to see a little bit of that offense, though. Looked all right. That new Schottenheimer offense with Mike McCarthy calling the plays. And then we get Arizona. So we have another kind of bum team next week. So
yeah, indeed.
I'm not buying into the Cowboys hype just yet. We knew the defense was going to be good. Let's wait until they actually play someone. I think they have San Francisco coming up ahead of the schedule as well, too. So that's going to be a doozy.
Yeah, Zach Wilson, not the answer. We know that. That is official. It was kind of cute. A little bit of optimism from some Jets people. The defense is really good. They could still make a run at the playoffs. I do not think so. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
No, that was it. I mean, he looked a little bit better than he did last year. You can tell he's getting a little more comfortable, but still, not Aaron Rodgers.
Indeed. Okay, so a lot to get into here. 4 picks coming right up. Before we get into those, guys, if you like the show, just let us know. Hit the like button right down there. And, of course, we have our fancy subscribe graphic over there. Big budget graphics here. So make sure you subscribe to the Covers YouTube channel. There we go, J-Lo. Serving it up for us. All right, let's serve up some picks here. Let's get right into the action. Monday night doubleheader. Things get started off with the Saints and the Panthers. My best bet for this game. Give me under 39.5. So check out the Saints here. Their last 11 games have seen an average combined score of just 30.18. They've gone under in 10 of those 11 games. That includes 5 straight unders on the road. I do expect growing pains to continue for Bryce Young in this Panthers offense. A brutal 3.9 yards per play in Week 1. The offensive line allowed a lot of pressure. Young completed just 52% of his passes. He threw 2 picks, just 2 trips to the red zone. 5 of 14 on third down. It was ugly. And this week, they're going to face a much better defense than the Falcons, who they faced in their season opener. And just 26 combined points scored from these teams in Week 1. Last time they played, late last season, it was a 10-7 final. Different quarterbacks, obviously a different coach here for the Panthers as well. Still, though, a fairly recent game, so it is worth mentioning. So I like the under 39.5 for that one. J-Lo, you like a side on the spread. Which direction are you going with this one?
Yeah, I guess it dovetails into what you just said about that Saints defense. And I like New Orleans -3 here. Saints defense looked really good. That passing defense especially looked very good against Tennessee last week. 3 takeaways, interceptions against Ryan Tannehill. Had 3 sacks, good pressure up front. This is a weird defense where last year, this was annually a very good running defense. Every year they could stuff the run. Last year they gave up a ton of yards on the ground. They did make some moves to kind of shore that up. If they can get their ground game stuffed and play the pass like they did last week, they're going to be a very, very tough team. And you mentioned too, we got Bryce Young, a rookie quarterback here, making the big start on Monday Night Football, sort of a doubleheader of Monday Night Football. But he's playing behind a broken offensive line. You're missing 2 starters on this O-line. Moten was also dinged up as well too. Pass protection could be lacking against the Saints team that was able to get good pressure against Tannehill last week. And then what was kind of lost in that game was Derek Carr had a pretty good game against the Titans. Yes, Tennessee, not a very good passing defense. However, over 300 yards passing. He was tops in air yards for Week 1 QBs. Kind of goes against what we saw from this Carmichael offense, which was supposed to be kind of shorter West Coast style stuff. But Carr was out there slinging it. He finished top 6 in many of those advanced QB metrics. And then we got a Panthers defense playing without its starting corner in J.C. Horn. So I like New Orleans to come and get it done here as a field goal favorite.
I think New Orleans to take care of business. Okay, let's go to number 2, game number 2, and we will take a trip to Prop City. I'm up first. I'm going to take Deshaun Watson over half an interception. This one coming in at plus money, plus 15. So check out Watson's body of work here so far as a Cleveland Brown. He's played in 7 games. He's thrown 6 interceptions so far, including one of the worst interceptions you'll see thrown all season last week versus Cincinnati. He was horribly inaccurate in that game, 16 of 29 on pass attempts. He had a lot of similar looking efforts last week. And the Steelers, I expect their defense to make some big plays after coming out flat in week 1. And this is the team that led the NFL with 20 interceptions last season. That includes picking off Watson twice in a game in week 18. So Watson over half an interception plus money on that one. J-Lo, you have a prop you like for this game. What are you jumping on?
Yeah, and we both agreed that we'd like the Steelers and the points here in this
Indeed.
game when we talked in the Sharp 600. I like George Pickens. I have over 41.5 receiving yards for the Steelers. A tough matchup for these guys last week in this passing attack. They fell behind very quickly to San Francisco, one of the better defenses out there. And that means that Pickett had to drop back a lot. Actually, the Steelers threw the ball more than any other team last week. And San Francisco knew that. And so they dropped a ton of guys in coverage. This is a team that's able to get great pressure with the front four. And then Deontay Johnson went down. So, they were able to kind of throw some extra coverage at Pickens and slow him down. I think he just cracked 30 yards receiving. And we saw a dip in his week 2 total here. It was opened at 41.5. It got bet up to 45.5 later this week. And then he didn't show up in the injury report, but he was limited with a sore hamstring in Saturday's practice. And the market went back to that opener, 41.5, 42.5. He's okay. There is no injury designation. This is a Monday Night Football game, so he's had that extra day to rest up as well, too. So I like buying back the over in this swing in the market that's down, kind of maybe overreacting to him popping up with a limited practice thing on Saturday. Pickett's going to draw a lot of targets as well, too. As I mentioned, Johnson is out for this game, so he's going to be Kenny Pickett's primary target. And he had 72 yards receiving in the week 18 finale against Cleveland last year. We saw him and Pickett connect for big plays, big home run plays in the preseason as well, too. And then if we want to go to the player projections and the player modeling, almost everything, all the major models out there calling for more than 42.5, 41.5 yards receiving. His ceiling close to 61 yards some places. So we're looking at almost 20 yards worth of headroom if you're betting the over here. So I like to see, it's going to be funny because they're not going to throw as much, but I think that benefits Pickens because they have a little balance and then he can break out for those big home run plays. And maybe this Cleveland defense, not as good as we think, because we saw them do what they did against Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And then we see what the Cincinnati Bengals did yesterday against Baltimore. Joe Burrow obviously not healthy. Maybe that win not worth as much. And we said, I think we said on the Sharp 600, a 5-point swing when compared to the look-ahead line. Steelers were -2.5. Now this line +2.5. So maybe this defense not as good. I think there's improvements with Jim Schwartz, but maybe not as good. So I like George Pickens to go over 41.5 yards receiving tonight.
Yeah, I think the Steelers win this one outright. Okay, so there you have it, our 4 best bets for the Monday Night Football doubleheader. Don't forget Brad Powers coming up in about 10 minutes' time. But, J-Lo, let's kick around a couple of topics here. So
Sure.
2 weeks into the season, futures lines are all over the place. Tua is the standalone favorite to win MVP. A bunch of other ones stand out. But let's take a look at futures bets that we absolutely love, bets that we are placing today. I'll go first. And check this out. I was surprised, shocked to see this number. Over at DraftKings, you can get the Chicago Bears to finish the season with under 5.5 wins, plus 115. Plus 115 on under 5.5 wins. This team is not getting to 6 wins this season. Justin Fields absolutely stinks. This guy's going backwards. He completely threw his offensive coordinator under the bus after that pick 6 he threw to lose the game versus the Bucs. I don't know if you guys caught that. Oh, that's a tough play call in that situation. Justin, you're the one who threw the ball. People were way too high on this team coming into the season. Why? Because they picked up DJ Moore. 10 straight losses with Justin Fields as a starter. He can't process things in the pocket. You know who the backup is in Chicago, J-Lo? Nathan Peterman. Peterman. This team is absolutely screwed. Now, you take a look at their schedule. And no, it's not a tough schedule. There's some Denver, Washington, Raiders, Panthers, Cardinals, divisional matchups. Might be some toss-ups there. But what's the best case scenario? They win half of those games. That team is not getting to 6 wins, under 5.5, plus 115 over at DraftKings for the Chicago Bears, their updated win total. What's a futures bet that you love right now?
Sure. And I had the Bears yesterday. Justin Fields just has to run with it. Like, quite honestly, it's like 1,000, 1,000. No one's open. Get the hell out of the pocket. Hanging on to the football way too long. For me, Tampa Bay, no playoffs, minus 164 at FanDuel. Obviously, a big overreaction to Tampa Bay starting 2-0. The yes on this prop is plus 134. This was as high as plus 400 to make the playoffs in the summer. And then they get a weird win over the Vikings, in which they're absolutely outgained, but they benefit from turnovers. And then we mentioned Chicago, a bad team coming into Tampa Bay. And it was soup. It was hot soup there yesterday, playing in the humidity in Pirate waters. But 2 wins that I'm not putting a whole lot of weight into. And then things get incredibly tough from here on out. Due to the Bucs' success last season, they have a much harder schedule than the rest of their NFC South brethren. They have Philadelphia on Monday Night Football this week. Then they go to New Orleans. They have a bye in week 5. And then they're versus Detroit, versus Atlanta, and at Buffalo in week 8. Some tough defenses along the way there. Then they also play 4 road games in 5 weeks. They have 2 sets of back-to-back road games from week 11 to week 15. So I'm going to buy back the success of Baker and the Bucs. No playoffs, minus 164 seems like a gift. And if New Orleans wins tonight, and maybe it's just kind of doubling down on New Orleans minus 3, New Orleans wins tonight, these odds are going to change. So if you're on board with Tampa Bay not to make the playoffs, minus 164, you want to bet this one today because it's not going to be the same price tomorrow.
Yeah, I was very low on Tampa Bay coming into the season. I'm shocked that they're 2-0, but yeah, I don't think that there's any way that they make the playoffs, especially with the Falcons looking pretty sharp and the Saints potentially jumping out to a 2-0 start to the season here tonight. So now it is time to play our favorite game. Do they actually suck? So in this segment last week, we discussed the New York Giants and if they actually suck. I don't know. I guess the jury might be kind of out on that. Nice comeback. You give them credit for that, but still, they were in a 20-0 hole at Arizona. So we're not going to give them too much credit for that comeback. We'll see how they make out on Thursday night as a 10-point underdog in San Francisco. Doesn't look very good. But on this week's edition of Do They Actually Suck, we're going to discuss the Los Angeles Chargers, who are off to an 0-2 start. And I think there's a possibility that this team actually sucks. They're full of talent on the offensive side of the ball. Anyone who plays fantasy football can tell you that. On the defensive side of the ball, they're filled with big names disguised as talent. Bosa and Khalil Mack have been practically invisible, just non-factors this season. The coaching is awful. The team's very undisciplined, always making boneheaded penalties at awful times. And they're the exact opposite of clutch. And yeah, some of that is on Justin Herbert. I know people don't like to give blame to Justin Herbert for some reason. They like to throw the offensive coordinator last year as a scapegoat, but Herbert gets worse as the game goes on. Check out the last 3 games that the Chargers have played in. Of course, they blow a 27-0 lead in the playoffs versus Jacksonville. We know the story of that. Week 1, they lead at multiple points at home versus the Dolphins. The Dolphins get the lead inside of 2 minutes. Still 1:45 left on the clock. Herbert takes 2 sacks, game over. Week 2, yesterday, against Tennessee, they led for practically the entire game. Tennessee gets a lead with 2:22 remaining. The Chargers get the ball back, a chance to win the game. They get the ball all the way down to the Titans' 7-yard line. Herbert takes an 8-yard sack. They need to settle for a tie with a field goal. Still, they win the coin toss. They get the ball first in overtime. 3 incompletions from Herbert, punt, Tennessee drives, kick a field goal, and win. So the Chargers are a team, they just can't get out of their own way. The defense stinks. I'm not saying Herbert's not good by any means. He's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but he's not good at the end of these games. He's not winning games like a guy who's making all that money should be doing for the team. So I think in the big picture, based on the expectations for them at least, the Los Angeles Chargers suck. Ooh. What do you think of that assessment, J-Lo?
It does seem like there's some sort of drag me to hell style gypsy curse on this team, because there's actually a page called Chargering on Urban Dictionary, and chargering stems back to the Chargers just consistent crumbling in any pressure situation for a while now. And it's not just under Justin Herbert's. I don't think they suck, but they're definitely stupid. you get into a week one shootout with Miami, you score 34 points in a game, you should win the game. I let that one slide a little bit because the Dolphins are one of those just on offense that can put it up. But we did see them defensively just not come with it at all. However, week two, I bet them -2.5 early. Was my first bet of the week on Sunday night last week, knowing that, that offense is coming to Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't have the same offense that LA can. I think if they can just put up some points and not shoot themselves in the foot, this should be an easy one. And the defense was just dumb. Overall, if you look at the metrics, an okay defensive effort. They were 11th in EPA allowed in week two, but they keep giving up those home run plays, 2 big bombs to Ryan Tannehill where he just heaved it. And then you mentioned the boneheaded penalties. Here's the run through on crucial spots. So unnecessary roughness on 3rd and 13 in the third quarter. And then on that same drive, they had a roughing the passer on a third. They had a roughing the passer on 3rd and 6. It leads to a go-ahead touchdown from the Titans. They had a roughing the passer on 3rd and 4 in the fourth quarter. It moved Tennessee all the way up to the 6-yard line, and then you just have Derrick Henry run the ball. That put them up 24-21. Everyone's calling for Brandon Staley's head, but the thing is here is they don't have a head coach option. Kellen Moore is not a head coach, and he hasn't been there long enough. And he just, he's not a head coach, not yet. And I think maybe Derek Ainsley, who's their defensive coordinator, maybe he falls on the sword here if they're going to fire somebody, but he just got the job, quite honestly. So it's, I think they have to ride this out. You have Minnesota this week, which is going to be a crazy game, knowing these two teams. And that could be another shootout, especially with this total ticking up. And then you're at home to Vegas, and then you have a bye in week 5 to kind of tighten the bolts on the defense. So I am not going to say that this team sucks right now. There's a lot of talent here and a lot of football to be played. So I'm not saying they suck.
Yeah, that should be a fun game in Minnesota. Looks like a 60-pointer to me. Speaking of week three, great assessment by J-Lo, by the way, on whether or not the Chargers suck. But speaking of week 3, let's take a quick look ahead. A couple of lines that stand out to us. I love the over 47 in the Falcons-Lions game. I think the Lions showed their true colors in week 2. The defense isn't very good. The offense can be electric playing at home versus Falcons offense looked pretty good in the second half yesterday. The Jags to bounce back, -8.5. If there was ever a teaser spot, that might be it right there. Getting the Jags inside of a field goal versus the Texans. Patriots Jets, a very low total, 38. I don't know if that's low enough. We're going to dig into that one more. I think I will be on the under in that one. And another good teaser spot, or maybe just a spot to just take the spread. The Eagles -6.5 in Tampa Bay. Eagles still don't look right. They will have a long week here. So we'll see what they can put together off a week and a half rest versus the Bucs. J-Lo, a couple of look aheads that you have your eyes on. What caught your eye?
Yeah, so I do the bet now, bet later column on Sunday night, or right around Sunday night when Sunday Night Football gets underway, when all those new odds are coming out. And I did place a couple bets. I was able to get San Francisco -10 at home to New York on Thursday Night Football. This one is up to 10.5 now at most places. There might be some 10s creeping around if you can find it, but most places up to 10.5 here. Not only is New York playing back-to-back road games, but now they have to play back-to-back road games on the West Coast. They're staying out West. They asked for this. They asked for back-to-back road games out West, and then schedule makers basically said, okay, yeah, sure, but then you're going to play San Francisco on the road on a short week. And then we got Saquon Barkley with that ankle injury. What they're saying is it's a regular sprain, not a high ankle sprain, but they only have 3 days to turn this around. And then there's also 2 starting offensive linemen potentially out for the Giants in this game. And now you're taking on a San Francisco defense that is just absolutely nasty. So that is one bet that I made, was San Francisco -10. This one, if Barkley gets officially ruled out, this one could move up closer to 13, maybe even flirting with 2 touchdowns. And then back to that Chargers and Minnesota game, bet over 51.5. It seemed like a tall total coming out of the gate. It opened, I think some places were 49.5, 50.5, and it's shot up. Now we're looking at 53.5 on this one. It's inside that fast track in Minnesota. We've seen the Vikings put up a ton of yards, maybe not put away the points like they should because of the turnovers, but this just seems like 2 offenses that can put up points, throw the ball, and then 2 defenses that, if you're a fan of either one of these teams, like, you just know that these defenses are just not showing up on every down. So I like the over in that one. You mentioned the Atlanta Detroit game. An interesting spot here. This is the first road game for Atlanta, and they're going to Ford Field, which is now this new home field advantage for the Lions. The fans there have been crazy since the preseason. They broke a decibel record for Ford Field in this home opener. They're showing up in blue ski masks, looking like it's a bank heist. These fans are insane. And Jared Goff was telling reporters after the game, he's like, this is a really, really big home field advantage. They played Seattle. They lose in overtime. Seattle had 3 false start penalties in that game. And now you got this Atlanta offense hitting the road. Their offense is a bit disjointed. Desmond Ridder, the first half of that game yesterday, he was terrible, absolutely terrible. Got it together in the second half and came through. And I actually had Atlanta +2 earlier in the week. So that one was okay, but a tough spot there. And then you had mentioned taking the teaser on the Jaguars, potentially a good move there. This is a team that is coming off. They're kind of in an absolute situational sandwich. And I love doing spot bets, and you can find that article on covers.com. But not only are they in a letdown mode with probably the biggest drop in competition, because you're going from playing the Super Bowl champions to playing the Houston Texans. So a bit of a letdown there. But they're also looking ahead to a week 4 game in London. They're going to take on Atlanta in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So there's a lot of logistics, a lot of moving pieces going around this team right now that they could be looking past Houston. They have the Houston Texans 9-1 straight up in their last 10 meetings.
Wow.
with the Jaguars. Yeah. I believe they're 7-3 ATS in those games. The Jaguars have stunk as a favorite since 2018. And then since 2018, the Jaguars have stunk at a favorite. They cover just 30% of the time, and they've been bad against the AFC South as a favorite as well, too. So just kind of Houston always has been a little thorn in the paw for this Jaguars team. And that spread is kind of all over the place, too, because we saw it 8.5, 9, 9.5, 10s out there as well, too. A potential look-ahead letdown spot for the Jags. So something to keep an eye on there as that spread likely ticks up. So.
Okay, there you have it. A couple early looks there for week 3. J-Lo, before we let you out the door, tell us a little bit more about what else you have going on over at covers.com this week.
Yeah. So the bet now, bet later is out there. A lot of those lines have moved, though. There was a couple bet later games. The spot bets article is up there now. I'll be doing my NFL power ratings after tonight's Monday Night Football games. So those will be on the site tomorrow morning. And then, another installation of NFL underdogs. We'll see if the Steelers can come through and move me to 2-1 on the week. And then we would be 4-2, but I won't count the chickens until they hatch, but that's about it. And then you can follow me on Twitter at CoversJLo.
Covers J-Lo. At covers. That's too many letters for me. There you go. It's written right there on the screen. So give that guy a follow. He does a fantastic job for us here. J-Lo, thank you very much for joining us. We will catch you again next week.
All right. Thanks for having me, Joe. Good luck.
Yes, sir. All right. Good luck indeed. Okay, so let's shift gears. Let's hop into the college football action here. We're going to be looking ahead and then looking back a little bit. Let's bring in our guy, Brad Powers. Brad, how did the weekend of college football betting treat you?
Some winners, some losers. I mean, it's been, I'm not saying it's been a horrific start, but it's been, at least in the FBS versus FBS action, it's been pretty uneven. So hopefully as we continue to collect data points specifically this week, as far as a big weekend for you, if you just like watching college football, this will be the weekend where we learn a hell of a lot about a bunch of these teams instead of them playing a bunch of tomato cans and wondering if they're going to be motivated to get margin or not.
Yes, sir. Okay, so before we get into the early picks, a couple quick questions for you. So last Thursday when you were on the show, we talked about how there appears to be more parity in the league this year, at least compared to more recent seasons. So who are a few maybe under the radar teams that you think deserve more consideration to win the national championship?
Yeah, I mean, I think typical years, there's maybe 3 or 4 that can win it. This year, I think it's probably double that, 6 or 8 teams. Obviously, you still have Georgia up at the top, Michigan, Ohio State. Those would be the 3 off the top of my head that first come to mind. USC gets a lot of publicity because of Caleb Williams. Texas had the big win against Alabama, so a lot of people are thinking about them. I'll give you 2 teams that, some people are talking about them, but I don't think enough right now. The team that Texas will play in a couple weeks, Oklahoma. If you look at the Sooners, I know they played 3, subpar teams, although SMU I think is pretty good. I mean, the Sooners are number 1 in the country in scoring margin. We'll get a good look at them. They're on the road against Cincinnati, a Cincinnati team that they should easily dispose of, considering what happened to the Bearcats last week. So Oklahoma's a team, when you're looking at win total projections, I got them over 10 wins right now. So, I mean, their only underdog role is going to be against Texas here in a couple weeks. So they're a team to keep an eye on. And then I think Exhibit A is the Washington Huskies. It's a very simple metric, but it's one that, the guys that like to bet this stuff love, and that's yards per play margin. Washington's number 1 in the country. And they haven't played, a extremely difficult schedule, but I mean, still Boise State's a halfway decent team. They went on the road to East Lansing and annihilated Michigan State last Saturday night. I would say maybe the most impressive performance of the entire weekend. So Washington's a team that is very well coached, has a Heisman caliber quarterback in Michael Penix. Everybody in the Pac-12 is talking Oregon, Colorado, USC. Washington just might be the best team in that conference.
Okay, I got to ask you about this Colorado team that continues to steal headlines, coming off another dramatic victory there on late Saturday night, especially for those of us here on the East Coast. So conference play starts for them here this week. The competition is about to pick up. Big injury at wide receiver. The defense doesn't look very good. So how do you foresee the next couple of weeks going for Deion Sanders in Colorado?
I'm going to age myself big time here, but there used to be a Monday Night Football announcer, Don Meredith. He used to, when the game got out of hand, he'd start singing a song, turn out the lights, the party's over. That's my thought process on Colorado right now. It's been fun. Okay. It's been great. Go ahead. No.
I'm just listening. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been a great story. It's captivated the national audience. It's been, in my opinion, I know some people don't think it's good for college football. I think it's been great for college football. There's been some stuff, in the last few games that should have risen some concerns. I mean, coming into last week, they were dead last in the country as far as yards per carry margin, negative 4.5. So rush yards per carry offense, subtracted by rush yards per carry defense, dead last in the country. They are also dead last in allowing sacks heading into last weekend. You saw Colorado State push them around up front. And it's been mainly the opposing team's mental mistakes, not necessarily what Colorado's done, but if they'd have played 3 button-up teams, I'm not sure Colorado's sitting here at 3-0. With that being said, they're going to face the most talented team they've faced so far this season. I think an Oregon team that probably will have some motivation for margin. They're not afraid to get margin, Oregon. So I think it's a blowout win for Oregon this week, and I bet that. And I think that line might even get higher with the news of Travis Hunter being out.
Okay, Brad, let's get into the picks here. The call them early picks, I guess, if you want to. A few maybe under the radar selections here. San Jose State, we have a 3.5-point spread versus Air Force. What are you liking for this one?
Yeah, I like San Jose State here, plus the 3.5. As long as you get 3 or more, I think it gives you value. I made the line 2, so you're talking about crossing through one of the very key numbers in football. Why am I showing value? Well, we're in week 4 now. Now you have some data points where you can start analyzing. And one of my favorites to look at this time of year, as far as trying to find value, is strength of schedule disparities. These teams are not playing, they haven't played conference games yet, so it hasn't been similar like-minded opponents. It's been vast disparities in some instances as far as who have they played and who have they not played. And this is the biggest strength of schedule disparity in all of week 4 this week. And the fact that San Jose State's played one of the toughest schedules in the country. They have faced USC. They have faced Oregon State. They went on the road and played one of the top group of 5 teams in the country last week in Toledo and almost won. Meanwhile, Air Force has played an FCS team. An FBS team that's transitioning from the FCS in Sam Houston State, and they played a well below average Utah State team last week. So they have faced one of the easiest schedules so far in the country. And because of those strength of schedule disparities, you look at 3-0 Air Force against 1-3 San Jose State. You got to dive deeper into those just straight up records. So I'm finding value on San Jose State.
Okay, next up, a true barn burner here: Jacksonville State versus Eastern Michigan. We got a 6-point spread. Hey, it might be an under the radar game, but probably a really good betting spot, right, Brad?
Yeah, I mean, I know everyone probably wants me to give out bets on Ohio State, Notre Dame, Florida State, Clemson, and all that. We'll touch on those games on Thursday's show,
yes.
But early week plays, a lot of times it's in the crumbs, stuff that's not out there yet as far as full information. The thought process in this one is that's giving value for Jacksonville State's twofold. Number one, Eastern Michigan, their opponent, is a very bad football team. They get credit for, they're off a 9-win season, one of their best in school history. And their coaching staff throughout the last decade has been good. But, man, this is one of their worst teams in the last 10 years. Doesn't show it in the straight up record at 2-1, but they barely beat an FCS team in Howard. They should not have covered against Minnesota in that game. Minnesota hasn't looked very good this year. And then last week, probably should have lost to Massachusetts. They only win by 2 at home, despite the fact they're +3 in turnovers. This might be a bottom 5 team in the country in Eastern Michigan. Meanwhile, Jacksonville State, I'm not sure the market's got a grasp on how to power rate this team yet. It's their first year in FBS play. They've looked good so far. They're off of early season bye. So I kind of like the extra time to prep here. I think they run away. This could be a double-digit win here. Let's lay the points here with Jacksonville State.
Okay, let's wrap things up with Texas Tech, West Virginia, a 5-point spread. Do you like the favorite or do you like the underdog?
Yeah, I like the road favorite here. Couple reasons. Number one, I think Texas Tech's a little undervalued. They're a 1-2 team, 2 close losses. Lost in double overtime against Wyoming, a game that they missed 3 field goals and blew a 17-point lead. Probably shouldn't have lost that game. And then against Oregon at home, they blew that game. They were -4 in turnovers, and that one blew the cover late. It should have probably won that game outright. So this should be a 3-0 team, and everybody would be in love with this team at that point, be a top 15 caliber team. Statistically, I still think they're a top 25 team. So I think there's some value there. They're underrated in the market. And then on the other side, West Virginia, banged up at quarterback. They're off one of their biggest wins in years against their arch rival Pitt. So I'm not sure that they can get back up in this game for a second week in a row. So let's go ahead and lay the points here with Texas Tech.
All right, Brad, thanks very much for joining us. We'll leave it at that. Brad will be back with us on Thursday to break down the biggest games of the week, but make sure you jump on those ones that he just handed out today. Brad, thanks a lot for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me, as always.
Yes, sir. The man right there. Make sure you follow him on social media if you're not already doing it. If you're just hopping into the show, we gave up 4 best bets for Monday Night Football. Let's recap those right now. My best bets, I like the under 39.5 for the Saints-Panthers game. And I like Deshaun Watson to throw at least 1 interception. Love the value on that at plus money. He's thrown 6 in 7 games with the Browns so far. He threw 2 versus the Steelers last season. And we take a look at J-Lo's best bets. Pickens over 41.5 receiving yards and Saints -3. So that just about does it for the Monday edition of Before You Bet. But I want to leave you guys with something specifically. Patriots fans, you need to stop living in the past because your team no longer has a seat at the table. You need to stop throwing out the 6 rings thing as if it's a recent accomplishment. There's been 4 Super Bowls since the New England Patriots have been in a Super Bowl. So why do I say this? You guys know I am a Dolphins fan. Dolphins fans, Bills fans, Jets fans, Patriots fans. We get on social media. We tease each other. We make fun. It's usually all in good fun. Sometimes people get their feelings hurt. Sometimes people go too far. But what we are debating is what is happening right now. Tua versus Mac. Josh Allen versus Mac. The Jets defense, I suppose, versus Mac. We're not debating what happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. We're talking about what is happening right now. What is happening right now is that the New England Patriots are the worst team in the AFC East. So the statute of limitations is up on the 6 rings. You can't use that as a rebuttal for what is happening right now. You hear me talking about the Dolphins going undefeated in the 1970s? You hear Chicago Bulls fans bragging about 2 3-peats in the 90s? No, you do not. Stop living in the past. Start living in the present. So that does it for that. Apologies to producer Mick, our resident New England Patriots fan. So that does it for the Monday edition of Before You Bet. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you are subscribed to the Covers YouTube channel. Best of luck with your bets tonight, and we will see you again on Thursday. Yeah.